I say welcome. My name is Carla Blake, and today is Monday, August 19th, 2024. And this interview is being conducted at Gulf Coast Community Foundation. It's approximately 4:35. And this oral history is a part of the Venice Chamber Commerce Leadership Class of 2024. It's our class project. It's focused on hearing stories of local and multi-generational businesses. So please state your name and the name of your business and what services you provide.
All right. Well, my name is Jeff Boone, and the name of my business is Boone, Boone and Boone. We're a law firm commonly known as the Boone Law Firm, and we are a general civil practice law firm that provides services, real estate, business, estate planning, wills and trusts. I do a lot of work with local governments, just the basic law, basic legal services that most law firms provide.
Thank you. And just to remind you, answer the question with your
Okay.
Rephrase my question with your answer.
Okay.
Because it isn't about me, it's all
Right.
about you.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to remind you more than once.
That's fine.
Don't worry, it happened all day. When and how did your business begin?
So our business began, the Boone Law Firm began when my parents, my dad was a lawyer and my mom was secretary, paralegal, bookkeeper, office manager, everything, when they moved to Venice in 1956 and opened my dad's law firm here in Venice.
Wonderful. Tell me about your background and how you came.
So how did I come to Venice?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah, I actually was born in Venice Hospital, so that's how I came to Venice. There's not a lot of us around, and so that's how I came to Venice. My background is I grew up here. I went to Venice Elementary School, Venice Junior High School. I graduated from Venice High School in 1976. I was part of the bicentennial class. I went to the University of Florida, got a bachelor's degree and then a law degree. Same thing my dad had done. My dad went to the University of Florida undergrad and law school, and my younger brother, who was just a year behind me, Steve Boone, just a year behind me in school, he went to undergraduate and law school at the University of Florida. I graduated in 1982 and came back home. I got married, married my college sweetheart, and came back home and went to work for my dad's law firm.
Now, did you want to be a lawyer, or do you feel like you were groomed into the family business?
So, did I always want to be a lawyer, and do I feel like I was groomed in the family business? So, I did think about some other things professionally, but I decided probably by the time I was in high school that I wanted to be a lawyer. And most of my friends growing up here couldn't wait to get out of here. I kind of thought it was a pretty cool place to live, and I loved being on the water. So Venice seemed like a great place for me to come back. And my wife grew up in St. Pete, so it was not a big change for her. So that's how I ended up back in Venice. Yep.
Awesome. Tell me about your background.
So my background, as far as hang on.
Well, your background, like we know that you were born at Venice Hospital, but your background, like you're the younger you.
Okay. So my background started growing up in Venice. I was what I would consider to be a typical kid. We rode bicycles all over. I lived on the island. Venice and Venice Gardens and South Venice were sort of Venice, and Nokomis were sort of Venice those days. And we rode our bicycles everywhere. I played Little League baseball at Venice Little League. I ended up I was involved in a lot of sports. I was also in Boy Scouts, and just the typical 1950s, 60s, 70s growing up in Florida, I guess. When I got to junior high school, I started playing basketball along with baseball. And then when I was in high school, I actually played football, basketball, and baseball at Venice High School. So most of my time, at least by that point in my life, was spent in sports, which was great. I loved it, and I'd never do it any differently if I had to do it all over again.
What is one of your favorite stories about your business, from your business?
Well, the story that I the favorite story that I like to tell about our business is one that I'm oftentimes encouraged to tell if people have heard it. So when my dad and mom moved to Venice in 1956, my dad's first office was on the second floor of the original Venice Nokomis Bank building, which is where um, Daiquiri Deck is now. So the corner of Nassau and Venice Avenue in downtown Venice. And my dad rented his first office from the bank owner, and he was the only tenant in the second floor. And his business started doing really well, and he decided that he could hire another lawyer to come to work with him. And at the time, there were only two other lawyers in Venice, and both of them were semi-retired and only did real estate. So my dad was the lawyer in town that did everything else, and so his business did real well. He hired another lawyer, and he went to the bank owner and said, "Hey, I need to rent another office." So the bank owner told him that I'll let you rent the office right by yours, but it's full of all furniture and stuff. You need to move it out, and if you move it out, I'll give you the first month's rent free. So my dad got his good friend who had a pickup truck, and they came and were moving the furniture out of this office building, getting ready for this new lawyer to come. And there was an old rug in the middle of the floor. And this is the 1926 building. So there's an old rug in the middle of the floor, and they moved it. And when they moved it, there was this metal plate on the floor. So they thought, "Oh, let's move this too." When they moved this metal plate that was on the floor, there was a hole in the floor, and they couldn't see what was down below it. So my dad's friend went and got his flashlight, shined it down into the hole, and it was into the bank vault. So this is back in the days before the internet, before electronic money. So all of the money that anybody had in Venice that was in the safe or in the vault at the bank, they had a hole in the floor, and we're looking down in it. And so people say, "What'd your dad do?" He said, "Well, this new lawyer was coming the next weekend, and my dad knew if he told the bank owner that there was a hole in the floor that went into the vault, that the bank owner wouldn't let him have that office. So he just put the plate back down, put the rug on top of it, and moved the furniture in, and never told anybody." So that's kind of the favorite business story, I guess, of our business.
That is a good story. I have heard it. I love that story. How would you describe yourself as a business leader in the community?
Well, I'm one of the many people in business in Venice that have had different leadership roles over the years. And I think maybe one of the things about me that's a little different is, I was born and raised here, and then went to college, and then came right back. So my entire professional career has been spent, in the town that I grew up in. And so, that doesn't make me any better or smarter or anything than anybody else, but I have maybe a historical perspective on things that other people don't have.
Do you have any business traditions?
Well, our law firm has handled the season tickets for the Venice High School football team since my brother and I were playing football at Venice High School in the mid-'70s. So it's been right at about 50 years now that we've been doing that. And, every year it's quite an elaborate operation because we literally do everything from mailing the mailers out to everybody to when they come, they either mail back in their forms and checks, or they come to our office and get them. And we have the people have their reserve seats, and they have them over the years. We keep track of where they are. So if they want to have the same seats the next year, we keep track of all of that. So that's one of our many business traditions. I actually asked, knowing that was going to be one of the questions I was going to be asked. I asked some of my brother and my kids that work with us, and they said that they reminded me that the very first fundraiser that the Venice Arts Center did, where they put things out around downtown, were pigs. These big styrofoam, covered in plastic pigs. And at the end of the Pigs in Venice for a couple of years, they auctioned them off. And so we ended up getting the Venice High School pig that the students at the Venice High School had decorated. And we keep it in front of right now it's not out there because it's hurricane season, because it would blow away because it's just fiberglass. But other than hurricane season, we have it out in the parking lot in front of our office, and people actually will stop and say, "What happened to your pig?" When we've moved it inside, or we've seen plenty of people stop and take pictures with the pig. So that's kind of, I guess, maybe our other tradition is we have the pig out in front of our office.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What makes Venice the unique place that your business thrives?
So, what makes Venice unique so that our business thrives? Well, so one of the things that I guess is unique about Venice is that as lawyers, the type of law that we practice involves a lot of the things about Venice that's a place where a lot of people move to. So we do a lot of real estate. We have a lot of retirees that move here, and so we do a lot of estate planning and probate. Folks come to Florida, come to Venice. They need to have their wills and trusts done. The business community continues to grow, which is great, and we do a lot of business law. We also represent property owners that want to develop their property, whether it's in the city of Venice or Sarasota, the Sarasota County part of Venice. And so we do a lot of work with the county government and with the city government for development. A lot of the people that's moved to Venice since the early 80s, probably a good chance they live in a development, whether it's a condo or a house that we've done work to make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you. What significant events in Venice history do you remember, and how did those events impact your business?
So I remember I remember when I was in high school, what in 1974 was the Arab oil embargo, where the U.S. was plunged into a deep recession. Not as bad as the Great Recession we had, 10 years ago or so, but almost as bad. And I remember that Venice, probably a good third, maybe 40% of the population in Venice, people left because they didn't have their jobs dried up. But our business was able to hang in there, I think, because of the roots that we had and our involvement in the community. So I do remember that. Similarly, in the 80s, there was another really bad recession where I remember, and this is right about when I came back from law school, when probably almost half of the businesses on Venice Avenue were actually closed, and some of them were even boarded up. And a lot of businesses closed down during that time period too. But again, we were able to, just because I think the roots we had in the community, our business, was able to move forward. And then, a lot of what's happened historically in Venice, either our business or people who work in our business have been involved in, things happening or keeping things from happening. My dad, my dad was involved in all sorts of stuff, getting the city to run water and sewer lines in the original part of the city that weren't there when they came in 1956. And he was involved in the first cable TV company coming to Venice. The original bank was the Venice Comus Bank building. The first new bank in Venice was First National Bank. My dad was involved in getting the charter for that. So all sorts of things we've been involved, our family's been involved in through our business. But I think the thing that historically was the thing my dad was the proudest of, and perhaps maybe the biggest impact, was the beachfront of the city along the airport. So from Casperson Beach north all the way up to where the private property starts along Airport Avenue, all of that beachfront was going to be deeded back to the property owners who had sold it to the government as part of the airport for the airbase. It was going to be deeded back to them. So everything from Harbor Drive west was going to be deeded back, and the people in town wanted to stop that from happening. And so my dad had a really good friend from the University of Florida when he was in undergraduate school that was a senior aide for Senator George Smathers, who at the time was one of the most powerful senators in the United States. And through my dad's friend, his aide got Senator Smathers to block the transfer. And so instead of all that land going to a developer for development. It actually went to the city of Venice. And so it's all now a public beach. And if it wasn't for my dad, all sorts of people tried to figure out how to do it, but it was only because of the contact my dad had through his college days at the University of Florida that he was able to stop that. And that was obviously historically a big deal.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. But both as, one Venetian to another, how did growing up with the circus impact your life? Because I knew it impacted mine. So share a little bit about circus life.
So what was it like growing up here with the circus, right? Okay, so I had some friends in high school whose parents worked for the circus. Some of them lived here year round. Others took off, and some of them were performers, and like the Gayonas, and others were worked. I had a really good friend whose dad was the paymaster of the circus, which was a big deal. They would go off in the summer and go travel the country with the circus. Great stories when they would come back. When the circus was in town, where I lived I grew up, the house I grew up in was on the island, still is on the island. So if the wind was blowing in the right direction, you could hear the animals, you could hear the lions roar and the tigers roar, you could hear the elephants, you could hear all that. And if the wind was strong enough, you could also smell it, which a lot of people don't realize how bad the circus smelled, but it smelled. So anyway, I remember that. I sold popcorn, during the circus, which was kind of fun. And, it was, back then when US 41 was only 2 lanes, including going Business 41 coming through Venice, when the circus performance, about an hour before it started, there was traffic backed up on those 2 lanes because there's only 1 lane, going south. Traffic was backed up from the circus arena all the way over the North Bridge off the island. So it was different when the circus was here. Then they left and everything went back to, except when they had the clown college here. So when they had the clown college, you'd see a bunch of mostly men, some women walking around in clown outfits, which was sort of an odd thing to see somebody walk down the sidewalk dressed like a clown. But yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the bridge, when the bridge would close and they would.
Oh, the animals would go over.
Yeah. After the train arrived. I mean, that was like a real thing.
Well, it was. Well, in fact, they went right by our office too. I mean, our office was you go over the bridge and make the left. They went right down in front of our office. Yeah. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, that was once a year. That was, yeah. Then when they'd go back too. So it's actually when they'd come, and then when they'd leave, they parade them that way as well. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. And you could hear it. And then lions, tigers, and bears. Oh,
yeah.
Bears. But
the lions and tigers for sure. Yeah.
The lions and tigers and the elephants.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Back then, I think too, elephant rides at Busch Gardens. Remember? Didn't you get an elephant ride at Busch Gardens?
Oof. That I'm sure you did. I guess I never did that. So yeah.
Well, that's not part. How has your business contributed to the culture of Venice? You've discussed your dad. Let's discuss you. How has what you've done in the community, has it impacted the culture of Venice?
So how has what I've done impacted the culture of Venice? So I have to answer that along the lines of my brother and I, who's just, the other senior partner in my law firm, our law firm, just a year behind me in school growing up. So he was just a year behind me graduating from law school and coming back to work. So, we were raised by our parents to give back to the community because it's the community that supports our law firm and supports our families in every other way. And so instead of just taking from the community, we should give back. So we were raised to give back to the community, to be involved. So culturally, a lot of the, Venice High School and supporting the athletic programs at Venice High School. And Venice has a strong culture of supporting the athletic programs. We've always been, very, very involved in that. I've been very involved in that, so has my brother. We've been, we've both been presidents of the chamber or chairman of the board of the chamber. So the sort of the business community culture, and we've both been very involved in that. We've, I've encouraged my kids to get involved. So my son, Jackson, who's a lawyer practicing with me, will be the Rotary Futures chairman of the board next year. And Annie Boone, his twin sister, who's also a lawyer that practices with me, she's on the chamber board and just went on the Rotary Futures board. We've been I guess, just involved in a lot of things where whether it's through church or whether it's through the high school or whether it's through business, it's just, I think we've affected the culture maybe in that way.
Thank you. What are you proudest of?
What am I the proudest of? Wow. So if we're talking about business, because well, what I'm the proudest of is my family. It's my 3 kids, my wife, my 3 kids, and they all, in fact, my wife and I are very, very blessed that all 3 of our kids live in Venice now. So 2 daughters and a son. And so that's what I'm the most proudest of. What from a business perspective, what I'm the most proudest of is the fact that my parents' commitment, starting the business and running it until, my brother and I got out of law school and came back and then continued to run it with us. The involvement we've had in the community, for, since 1956. So it's almost, pretty soon it's gonna be 70 years. So just our involvement in the community, and now our kids who are working. My brother has, his oldest son is a lawyer practicing with us. And then I have my 2, as I said, 2 of my kids are practicing with us. They're getting involved in the community. So it's 3rd generation is continuing with that. So I'm very, very proud of that.
Yes, you should. What are the big growth opportunities for Venice business life and civic life?
So the biggest growth opportunities for Venice business life and civic life. So at sort of a on the ground level, I think the redevelopment of the seaboard area in the city of Venice is going to be a really cool thing. It's not going to happen overnight, but it seems to be getting started. So I think that's going to be tremendous. So for all of the complaints everybody has about the population growth we've had, as John Ryan, my best friend growing up, who sadly passed away a few years ago at age 59, but was president of the chamber for almost 20 years. As he used to say, well, the secret's out, or, people have now discovered Venice, and then everybody else knows what we've always known, right? So with all of the traffic that people complain about because of all the growth we've had, especially since COVID, what goes with that is all of the business opportunities, civic opportunities, cultural opportunities, the things that Venice has to offer that but for all the people that have moved here, we wouldn't have. And so, I'm growing up here in the 50s, 60s, 70s, before I went off to college, I clearly remember when you used to have to drive to Sarasota to either buy things or get things or do things that there was either that didn't exist in Venice, or there's very limited availability of things like that. So things are, there's going to be even more opportunities in the future. And, change, you can't stop change. You just have to make sure it's good change and not bad change, right? But there's always going to be change.
Very true. You're right. Where do you see your business heading in the next 10 years? And what are some big decisions that you might have to make?
So where do I see our business heading in the next 10 years, and big decisions that I might have to make? So, so we have now the 3rd generation of Boone lawyers working in the law firm. So I see which is fantastic. And of course, my dad to be the proudest, and my mom the proudest of that. So I see our business continuing, with the next generation, and who knows if there'll be a 4th generation or not. I guess, I won't be around to see that, but we'll see. But that's where I see our business going in the next 10 years. I believe we will stay involved enough in the community that our business will continue to flourish, because of our involvement in the community. And, we always want to do the best job we can for our clients. So we want to keep that reputation that we've had. I see that continuing. probably the biggest decision that I have to make is when to either retire or slow down. So so for me personally, I'm still working every day, but I'm going to have to make a decision. My at this point, my kids are perfectly capable of practicing law and doing just fine without me, but I'm not ready to give it up yet. So
Interesting. Thank you. I'm sure your wife can speak into that a little bit.
yeah, well, she's been retired now she worked for the school system for 30 something years. So she's retired now and she enjoys it. She thinks she'd wish I'd have more time to do stuff with her. And I will. I'm definitely going to make more time to do that.
Good. That's good. When did you join the Venice Chamber of Commerce? And please state the year and how many years you've been a member.
So the Boone Law Firm is the third oldest, longest standing member of the Venice Chamber. And I think our law firm became members in 1961. And me personally, when I came back from law school in 1982, I immediately got involved in chamber activities, and I was the chamber president the 99-2000 year, the millennium year. Yeah. So
Awesome. How has the chamber impacted your business?
So how has the Venice Chamber impacted my business? So our business has been impacted in tremendously different, very positive ways by the Venice Chamber. So the Venice Chamber is the voice of the business community in a great town that nevertheless is a retiree town. And even as it's grown and as the business community has grown, the retiree part of the community has grown as well. So the Venice Chamber serves a very unique and incredibly important function in being the voice of businesses in Venice. There's a lot of people that before they retired and moved to Venice were very involved in the business community when they were running their own business. Now that they retire and move down here, they're just not, what they do every day isn't going to work, and therefore they're not naturally involved in everything that's going on. So the chamber is also not only a voice for the business community, but it's a way of connecting the folks who move here that are retired with the businesses in town. And over the years where there have been particularly critical issues, this doesn't, in my 40 plus years of being involved with the chamber, this hasn't happened probably more than a half a dozen times, but every so often there'll be a critical issue that the chamber really, gets involved in and makes a difference. And some of that is dealing with crisis like COVID. Other times it's actually the chamber spawning an idea. So the best example of that in my time with the chamber is what is now Legacy Trail, which runs from Northport to Manatee County. That all came about from a Venice Chamber initiative through VABI, through Venice Area Beautification, Inc., to create a pedestrian bicycle trail along the Intercoastal Waterway on the island side of the Intercoastal Waterway. And it was a phenomenal success. So the Venice Chamber then replicated it on the east side of the Intercoastal Waterway and kind of connected it to the train station. And then from there, it took off, and the county condemned all the old railroad right-of-way lines. And anyway, so all of that phenomenal now that stretches from Northport to Manatee County all originated out of the Venice Chamber. So the Chamber's also, really had a big role in some really great positive things that have happened too.
Thank you. That's awesome. How do you want you and your business to be remembered?
So that's a good question. How would I want me and my business to be remembered? So I think that I would want my business and me, our family business, and me and my family to be remembered as people who, uh, love Venice, cared about Venice, and have always been very involved in Venice and have a lot of pride in some of the things that have happened that we've been involved in, not by ourselves, with the combined efforts, like the Rotary Club that we've all been in, just the phenomenal things our Rotary Club has done over the years, but all sorts of things in Venice that our business, me and my family have been involved in. Me and my mother would be rolling over in her grave. My family and I've been involved in, not me and my family, things my family and I've been involved in, you know, over the years. That's how I'd like to be remembered. It's our contribution, and I'm confident that through the next generation of Boones in our business, that's going to continue as well.
Awesome. Thank you. If you could pass one piece of advice or wisdom to future generations in Venice, what would it be?
So, one piece of advice to future residents of Venice, business people in Venice, just people in general. Yeah, it would be that, uh, always stop and look around and realize what a great place this is. And no matter what might be causing you some consternation, just take a step back and realize that, no matter where you live, there's always things that maybe you wish they were a little different, but on the whole, there's no place better than Venice, Florida.
Your sweet little Hallmark town.
That's right. Absolutely.
I agree. It's open mic. Is there
Oof.
anything you'd like to add that maybe I didn't ask that you'd like to say? It's your opportunity.
I guess no, you covered so much. I guess the only thing that I would add would be that um, uh, everybody tends to think of Venice as when they first got here, whether it was me that arrived in the maternity ward at the hospital, or whether it's somebody who retired and moved here yesterday, and everybody in between. So everybody thinks of Venice that way. And so the people who arrive today decide to come here because of how Venice is today. Yet there are people that arrived 10 years ago today that maybe complain about how things are now instead of how they were 10 years ago when they arrived. And then there were people 10 years before them. So to me, the really important thing just for Venice going forward is for people to realize that as long as that, well, let me say it this way, there's going to be change. You can't stop change. There's always going to be change. It just has to be handled the right way, and not by just saying no, or not by just saying whatever. If you get involved in what's going on to want to make a positive difference in what's going on, then Venice will always continue to be a great place.